Guys,
It was my mic. Yeah, I don't know why I did that. Our apologies. We've been without sound for a few minutes. Thank you, chat, for alerting us.
all right, we got a pair of Mother of Runes, really starting out with the defensive posturing from Tim. That's going to allow him to avoid most of the removal out there, outside of Jite. He also has Swords to Plowshares, and it looks like several lands in his hand, so he should be able to develop his board.
But for now, only 2 power, right?
Yeah, those are very unlikely to turn sideways unless they are actively countering removal, which is to say that they're likely never to turn sideways. They're just kind of protecting whatever future threats that he has. So we are on a type of Maverick list here. It looks like green, white, and black. That is a strategy you'll see a lot of players use to bring in some of the more powerful threats to a deck like Death and Taxes. And a Knight of the Reliquary draws a Force of Will, which is pretty much one of the better uses of Force for Tom here. He wants to stop kind of the over-the-top cards, leaving Tim with only 3 cards left in hand.
Yeah, so this Maverick style list, Tim has played for a long time. I was talking about how Tim has top 4'd the last Titanium Challenge that we had back in March. He made the top 4 of that tournament. He defeated Noah Walker in the top 8 to move on to top 4, but he didn't get beyond that. So hopefully this time he can move farther, but he'll have to get through True Name to do it.
True Name is a bit of a nightmare here. Any type of equipment going on to him is just going to exacerbate the problem, and Mother of Runes is in no way going to really interact with that. So Tim has found himself without much of a clock here. His best clock was just Force of Will. So this is really a battle in between 2 different Stoneforge lists. We've got a blue shell, and then we have the white, green, black shell. We're just going to kind of see how those match up. There's a lot of fun tricks that Tim has, but he is very far behind right now.
Sure. The one area that he is ahead on is mana. He's going to have 3 colored mana sources facing down against only a Wasteland, which doesn't actually cast that much, and a Tropical Island.
Yeah, for Tim to really recover from this situation, he is going to need to set a significant clock. And it looks like Knight of the Reliquary is likely his best option for that. He does have some newer cards, which are going to force me to go to the Gatherer and see exactly what he put in there. It is really a fun part of Legacy to be able to take some of these new cards and find a way to put them into already existing archetypes and hang with some of the best cards that have ever been printed.
Right, now this is one of the cards that you might have to look up. Renegade Rallier. It has Revolt just like Fatal Push. It will bring back a card with converted mana cost 2 or less that's gone into the yard, or that is in the yard, this time a Wasteland, taking Tom down to 0 colored mana sources. So this is all Tom has. If Tim can ever find an equipment, he'll be in great shape. And interesting to me that these Mother of Runes aren't turning sideways because Tom doesn't have anything.
It may have been a turn to do that. Let's just take a look and see what he could be playing around. I'd imagine Swords to Plowshares is probably the biggest thing. It really is just Swords to Plowshares there. Abrupt Decay is going to require 2 colored mana. If Tim does get aggressive, he will be able to outrace Tom's death ray, and there is the Knight of the Reliquary. That poses a huge, huge threat here.
Yep, currently is a 6/6 is Knight of the Reliquary. So Tim O'Dowd, 6 + 3 + 1 + 1 is exactly Tom Smiley's life total. 11 points of power on the board. We'll see if Tom can do anything with a colorless mana and a blue or a green. And if I'm not mistaken, there's not a lot he can do. Can't cast Stoneforge.
Legacy has a lot of very powerful plays, but this is not vintage. He cannot brainstorm into Lotus Time Walk and get a new take on this. This is right here, right now. What can he do? And Jite is not going to get it done.
Wow, and True Name Nemesis goes into the red zone. I mean, isn't he facing down lethal here?
The Mother of Runes would enable him to give Pro Blue to make them unblockable. So that may be part of the reasoning there. I agree with the attack, but there's just very little he's going to be able to do.
Yeah, now this might just be Tom Smiley making Tim go through the motions. These Mother of Runes aren't cards that normally get into the red zone. And he says, well, maybe Tim doesn't realize. We'll see. Gonna confirm that Tom is at 11 life. He's like, wait a minute, Tom. Aren't you dead?
One of the main differences in between Maverick lists in Death and Taxes is how rock solid the mana base is. Death and Taxes, really a mono white deck, really difficult to disrupt their mana, whereas Maverick here, Tom's Wastelands do have a chance to kind of reverse the roles here. We saw in this game Tom was on the receiving end of Wasteland, but that could easily be flipped in this next couple of games.
Yeah, but not this one, because Tim takes it down. He wins the first game, the one without sideboards.
So for Tom's list, Vendilion Click, certainly Zealous Persecution is a very powerful card here. But he's got a lot of cards that really would go nowhere near a Maverick list. Most of these cards are for combo or the mirror match, and these kind of creature aggro decks, you kind of hope that what you've sleeved up is good enough to kind of handle that with the main deck. So I would expect Zealous Persecution to be one of the most powerful effects there. That's going to kill Mother of Runes, Thalia. There's actually a Scrib Ranger in there that it could take down, and it also pumps your side of the team. So it's a really powerful effect there. It also hits that Dryad Arbor. And it's worth noting that Tim is actually running a Gaia's Cradle.
Wow.
So that could actually serve to really cripple his mana as well. If he does get very far ahead, being able to pull back down the number of creatures could become relevant and stop him from really going over the top with his equipment and the cast equip all on the same turn.
Right.
Now you can kind of slow him down a turn or two with that type of plan.
Yeah, not a lot of people expect the Spanish Inquisition or the Zealous Persecution. It's not a card that you play around usually. It's really niche. I doubt Tim O'Dowd knows about it unless they played in the Swiss earlier, which I don't think they have.
Though Tim is actually sleeving up 2 copies of the card himself, so we might actually see them cancel each other out, which would be fascinating.
Yeah, I've never seen quite that. That's like an old standard interaction, Shards of Alara standard.
Yeah, so it's on Tim's side, he's going to want to bring it in to handle that True Name, and he doesn't know about the Noble Hierarchs, but that's just some extra added value. So we could actually see an accelerated out True Name off of a Noble Hierarch or two, and then whoever's Zealous Persecution resolves first is going to be the one that's going to survive that battle.
Right. Now, for other options, he has Choke available to him. I mean, if you don't want it in this matchup, what matchups do you want it in?
No, I agree. He's almost entirely non-basic islands. He's got a singleton scrubland. It is notable that Noble Hierarch and Deathrite at least allow him to function under a choke, unlike some of the older dedicated control lists where it would just be game over. You don't see as much choke now. It was very good versus Miracles and some of the dedicated control lists, but it's still a very powerful effect, and if it's in there, I agree that he'd be finding some room to get it into his post-board game.
So, here we go. The players have sideboarded, have shuffled, have presented. They'll be drawing their 7 soon. Tim O'Dowd up a game, advantage Tim. Tom Smiley will have to win here and then break serve in game 3. So he has an uphill battle. So here we go. We'll be full screening this in a second. Players considering mulligans. Tom Smiley would love to open on something like a Stoneforge, and keeps. Maybe we'll see that, maybe we won't. Tim O'Dowd sends it back to the well. He's a confident man, rocking the purple shirt and the pink sleeves. I like it.
Pink sleeves have been popular. There's just something about standing out from the pack.
Yeah. Tim O'Dowd, I don't see him at the modern events. I do see him at the legacy events. I think he's done this, and I think he's played Maverick for a long time. He was playing it 4 months ago. He's playing it now. I have to imagine we'll see him in August playing it as well.
Scrying first major decision now that he's kept. He decides to keep it. So Tom not starting out with a mana accelerant. That is typically not where he wants to be. We have to think that he has a very strong hand to keep it without that. So he probably has some removal, maybe some counters, things that he's really thinking are going to be highly impactful to give up that type of acceleration. And we've got a Brainstorm along with Fetch.
Again, like you said, probably not where he wants to be on the second turn of the game, not adding anything to the board. Now maybe he can put a Noble into play, but this is a slower draw.
Yeah, ideally he'd want to be casting a Leovold or a True Name Nemesis here. At the very least, a Stoneforge Mystic just naturally off of 2 mana. So he's pretty far off of his optimal curve, but he did find a Noble Hierarch. So even though he'll be a turn or 2 behind, maybe this card selection will end up making it worth the trade-off. Particularly in the elimination rounds, it does, for some people, become harder to mulligan, knowing that if they head down that path, especially stronger players where you can kind of look back at the reasons you're losing, a lot of the time, if you have a very high win percentage, a lot of your losses are just kind of variance where it's just like, oh, I got land screwed. I mulled the 4.
Right.
So it's like if you have 7 that's somewhat keepable, it can definitely be tempting. Of course, at this point in the tournament, you are playing the finest competition you can have, so you really do have to weigh that accordingly. You want a solid starting hand, but this is as high variance as it gets. It doesn't matter if you were undefeated getting here. 1 match loss and you are done.
This is true. I mean, if I'm going up against the finest legacy players in the world, I'm going to sleeve up a deck like Charbelcher, because I'm not going to be able to compete with them on their level necessarily. So I would need to increase the luck factor, not decrease it.
Got some basics and a promo Thalia.
Hey, I love that Thalia. And news from the other semifinal, it was quick, but All in Red is in the finals. Zach Turgeon's All in Red. I can't wait to see that against whatever comes out of this match.
There's our True Name. Thalia does not make that cost more, so both players' decks operating kind of fair at this point.
Yep, 2-1 versus 3-1. These would be good power to cost ratios if we were playing limited or constructed. These creatures are not played for their stats, we'll just say that.
Oh, Jite.
Wow.
And we will likely see an opposing Jite on the other side here from this Stoneforge Mystic.
Yep, now important to note with the True Name Nemesis, all damage dealt to that card is reduced to 0. All damage that comes from Tim O'Dowd. So even if Tim were to suit up the Thalia and attack, the damage that Thalia's first strike would deal True Name is reduced to 0. No GT counters are required, and even if they were, it couldn't kill True Name anyway. So really an excellent blocker as well as a good attacker. We'll see how Tom wants to play it. He's been aggressive with his true names in the past, but this turn, I think, is a good turn to stay back.
Leovold. And a Deathrite. And he does decline to let Tim get some counters on that GT. Though really, it probably wouldn't be that big a deal for him to kill a Deathrite and let Tom draw 2 at this point.
Right.
This is a very grim situation. Tom really found himself in a commanding position despite not finding that mana acceleration early.
Tim just holding a bunch of lands. This is not good. He would much rather have a Stoneforge to get the GT. He would much rather have some Knights of the Reliquary, some answer cards to True Name. Zealous Persecution would be good here. But I don't think he has any of it.
Now, Tom has set himself up where if he draws a mana source, he's going to be able to play Stoneforge, get GT, cast GT, and equip GT. Though you're right, the Thalia is going to actually slow that down. He'll be 1 mana shy.
Oh.
The line I was referring to would require 6 mana. Thalia would make it 7. Swords sends her packing.
Yep, the only creature Tim has drawn this game is that Thalia, and now it's gone.
Unraveling pretty quick. We've got the Stoneforge Mystic barely off camera there.
Yep. When you have so many permanents that they don't all fit on the coverage screen, that is a good thing. That's a good problem to have. Tim O'Dowd does not have that problem. He has 4 lands and a lonely equipment.
GT is the strongest equipment in this matchup. It just kills so many of the Maverick creatures, as well as, when you're looking at the Death and Taxes matchup, very similar. It's probably the biggest difference when you're looking at people with experience versus people brand new with the deck. Most people kind of assume that Stoneforge Mystic is always going to get Batterskull,
right,
and it's very much not the case. A lot of the time it's the second or even third best equipment in the deck in these matchups.
So here we see Tim contemplating on his turn. He's drawn a Renegade Rallier. It's a 3/2. It returns a Wasteland to play, but at this point in the game, that doesn't matter.
He's so far behind here. He really needs a pretty large combination of cards to dig his way out. And for each of those, because of Leovold, Tom would be drawing cards.
Tim in the tank, trying to find a way out. Can he do it? What's the plan? Seems to think that recurring a Wasteland is good, but it really is not. Tom gets to draw a card for every Wasteland activation, I should say. He's gonna give it the old college try. He'll be like, you know what? I got these expeditions. I paid good money for these. I traded for these. I am not gonna let them go to waste. I'm going to use them before I die. That's at least what I think the internal thought process is of Tim Dowd. We'll see.
A Zealous Persecution at least wouldn't let Tom draw a card. It's all opponents. Creatures get -1/-1. So at least it doesn't say target opponent.
Right.
So there is that. He could actually get rid of the True Name and kind of stave things off for a little while, but it's not in the cards currently. And once that True Name hits with that GT on it, it's going to be a very bad situation. Yeah, Wastelanding there is really not hindering Tom at all. He probably would have happily cycled that land just to draw an extra card. He's got the Deathrite to produce mana.
Yep, extra lands from the Leovold, extra equipment from the Leovold, triggers as well. Tim O'Dowd in quite a bind. But you know what, though? You know what? Tim O'Dowd looks like Daniel Craig when he's playing James Bond. Whenever you think Daniel Craig's out, he finds a way back in. If anyone can do it, it's Tim Dowd here. But I guess no one could do it because this isn't going to work.
This is looking very, very bad. He's getting the counters. He can keep those around to be able to get rid of the creature in response to the GTA equipment on the other side. There's not going to be any counters on this. And the guy is cradled, just land after land.
Come on, Tim, use the catacombs. It's there for a reason. Get a land and then scoop. That's the gentleman's play. Oh.
All right, moving on, 1-1.
Game 3.
Tim on the play here. He also has Deathrite Shaman. We really haven't been seeing that. I think that's the type of draw that he's going to be hoping for.
Gotta be much better than Mother of Runes in this matchup.
Yeah, Mother of Runes is really great against a lot of removal spells. It's also good to allow your creature to get in there when it's holding equipment, particularly something like GTA to be able to get those first counters, but Deathrite's going to really allow him to accelerate. He does have the Knight of the Reliquary at 3 mana. It would be something that allows Green Sun Zenith to be able to get whatever he wants out of the deck instead of kind of playing fair and just 1 mana a turn. So that type of acceleration will really help him out, and we'll see if he's able to take advantage of that in this game. So far, Deathrite has not been a huge player in these games, certainly compared to some of the other matchups that we've seen.
Yeah, Deathrite has kind of been the story of the day, and maybe that's no surprise. With the top ban, Deathrite has got to be just the best turn 1 in the format.
Yes, certainly the best fair turn 1.
Yeah, the best 1 card turn 1 anyway.
Yes.
1 mana Planeswalker. I'm not the person to coin that. A lot of people have called it that, and it's really true. I mean, it has 3 abilities like a Planeswalker. They all produce a pretty big advantage depending on the situation, either an extra mana or draining your opponent for 2, or in rare circumstances gaining 2, playing defense. Really good card. Do you ever see it getting banned?
I hope not. I really hope not. I feel that Legacy is supposed to be where you can play all but the absolute most broken cards in the game.
Okay.
That's kind of how I define it, and I feel like if Wizards came from that type of approach, I think that would actually do a lot for helping people understand the format. Vintage used to be like that. They used to define it as it's just restricted cards when they are fast mana, tutors, or degenerate card drawing.
Right.
And that was their criteria. And over time, it's kind of strayed from that. Rarely, every once in a while, a little bit here and there, to the point where now we have Ponder on that list. And I do not see Ponder as a card that's restriction worthy in Vintage. Brainstorm's an argument. I love the card. I'd rather it not be. But that's, in my view, formats should be managed from a philosophically consistent perspective where you tell people what the format's about. In Modern, you said, no turn 2 or 3 combos. That's fine. Whatever that criteria is. So we do have here that turn 1 mana creature that we were looking for from Tom, answered by a Swords to Plowshares, shots fired over the bow, and now Tim on his turn 2 is going to look to make the most of it. Maybe a Stoneforge, maybe a Thalia. He has a lot of competition on the 2 slot in his deck. Gaddock Tea, Scavenging Ooze. There's no shortage of 2 drops here.
Right, now finally Tim O'Dowd actually is starting off on the front foot. Last game he was on the back foot the entire game. The True Name prevented anything from really going on. This time he's on the play, and he gets to resolve Thalia versus only 1 land. That's huge.
Thalia is going to make that Brainstorm much less exciting.
Yep, only another drop for Tom. In for 2.
Interesting. It looked like there was a Kasali Pride Mage in hand. That's probably not going to be his play here. Otherwise, that was a slight blunder.
Yep, possibly missing out on 1 point of damage. We'll see if he has other plans. It looks like it may be a post-combat Pride Mage. It's okay, Tim. We all make mistakes. Oh, I see. Okay. He has a knight. He might be thinking, well, I don't want to run into daze. That's always so scary, but last turn, he tried to deploy a Thalia, and it was not dazed. So unless daze was drawn this turn exactly, knight should resolve.
Tom can't even brainstorm into the daze here, because that would require multiple mana.
Mm-hmm. Is try to find a... No, I guess Force of Will wouldn't do it either.
No, once he's tapped out, Thalia's going to ensure the shields are totally down. So Force of Will becomes much, much worse in this matchup. It is a card that often gets sideboard out in this type of matchup as well, given that it's got a very short amount of targets. I feel much better killing a Thalia that's on the board than forcing one. And we've got the true name.
Okay. So, well, that's something. It can be deployed on curve. It only costs 3. And it's hard to kill.
Now, his knights are not really hyper-powered here. They're just very large creatures. There's no combos to be used here. We've got a second knight.
Knights are 4/4s, so they can attack through True Name Nemesis if need be to get 4 points in. But more likely, this knight will just activate at the end of turn to buff it up even more. Sack of Plains or Forest to get a fetch land. And it looks like that's Tim's plan. He's doing it main phase.
The Horizon Canopy, also an option here. And it looks like he's going to go with the Wasteland play and start to chip away at that mana base. Additional True Name Nemesis would be problematic. So I think that's a conservative line. I think it's very wise to try and cut back on that. It's difficult to get them back down under that 3 mana if they're able to just keep drawing cards every turn.
Right. Now, we don't see any equipment coming out yet. That was a hallmark of the last game. We had Jite versus Jite. This game, none to be found. We'll see what Tom can do for 2.
Brainstorm with the fetch land on board. It looks like we might have Fire and Ice in there.
So Tom keeping the Force of Will. Putting back a few dead ones. The winner of this match must face all in red in the finals. So stay tuned even after this match for a really exciting final.
Now, Tom has 0 basic lands on his deck list. So Tim could knock him all the way back down to 1 mana with a pair of Knight activations.
Dryad Arbor cannot tap for mana this turn, summoning Sickness, but I won't try anyway.
And we'll see if he decides to also cash out his Bayou to get rid of that Wasteland. It's not colored mana, but it would stop him from getting to 3 mana on his turn.
Right. Now these knights are getting... The knights are pretty big right now. They are 6 lands in the graveyard, 8 8s. So when Tim does decide to get aggressive, it'll only be a few turns. But first, he wants to cut off the mana of Tom Smiley.
Well, it looks like Tom's doing this during the end step.
Guess he wants to shuffle away those Brainstorm cards really badly, draw some more land.
We'll see if Tim changes the course here and activates his second Knight of the Reliquary. He does not pivot here. Interesting. You've got a Swords to Plowshares targeting the knight. Really just trying to play defense with this true name right now as an exceptional blocker.
Yep, I have to imagine the knight will get activated for some purpose here, either to turn the bayou into a cradle to force the wasteland, or turn the bayou into a wasteland to cut Tom off even further. Should be interesting to see what Tim chooses.
Well, if he does target that bayou, expect Tom to go ahead and wasteland it in response. Checking that too.
Yep, so Knight of the Reliquary will activate itself, turn the bayou into a verdant catacombs in response to the Swords to Plowshares. The Knight activation is a cost, sacking the bayou.
He must sacrifice it, so he cannot actually break up that play.
But he will gain about 10 life, maybe 9 life. We'll find out. So True Name's going to have to go a long way. I get the feeling that Tim O'Dowd at 27 or 28 life can only be slain with the aid of equipment this game.
This is a very tense game state here. True Name doing a lot of work, as is Knight. Knight seems to give it a sense of inevitability, being able to continually grow itself, so every round that passes, Knight can get bigger and thin out the deck.
This is true. And to be noted too, if Tom was thinking of trying to run Tim out of Forest and Plains cards, Tim does have access to one Ramunap Excavator, the Crucible of Worlds, on a creature. He could always go Green Sun Zenith for that card and have Recurring Wastelands, Ghost Quarters, Fetch Lands, and Basics. If we go really late, that's a play we'll see.
Yeah, being able to recur Wasteland against a deck with no basics is a powerful strategy, to say the least. He's already down to just a single colored mana, and Wastelands are not great against a recursion strategy.
Tom Smiley with one green source left in his deck, from a mana base anyway. He has one trop left, and then after that, it's Death Rites and Nobles for mana. Does still have all his black sources in his deck, so he has 2 undergrounds, 1 scrubland. The Tundra represents one of the 2 white sources in the deck. Knight grows again. The fact that this is the main phase makes me think it's Wasteland, but we'll see.
See if Horizon Canopy catches his eye and pulls him in that direction. Nope, he sticks with Wasteland.
Wow.
So, Tom with 0 colored mana.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I mean, Tom could just cut Tim off of all his mana right now. He chooses not to. I don't know what those Wastelands are really doing otherwise except paying for Thalia. And wow, not what Tim wants. Blessed Alliance drawn. This is a weird game.
Tom passing quickly. Mother of Runes, that threatens to end the game, so that will be met with a Force of Will, paying 1.
So 1 Mom down, but 2 forces down, so any additional Mother of Runes should resolve versus the 4-card hand of Tom Smiley.
Making sure pays the 1 and we're good.
Yep. Oh, that's a good draw.
And Deathrite. That is a very important card right now. That'll give him whatever colored mana he needs. Get that Stoneforge online.
Okay, Savannah, a good draw. A few more mana for Tim O'Dowd, more fuel for the Knights. He still has 1 Wasteland and 1 Ghost Quarter left, but
quickly getting that death right out of there.
Abrupt Decay, that is a key card. Now, Swords to Plowshares could get Force of Will, but an Abrupt Decay has no counter play.
Tim at 25, very comfortable life total. No chance of getting tempoed out by this True Name Nemesis, which is very often how that card will get you. You just kind of find yourself just a couple of turns away from being able to outrace it. It just doesn't come up that way. At this point, he's comfortable to build his game. Thalia is really stymieing Tom from efficiently using his mana.
Brainstorm costing 2. Seeing Thoughtseize, that's a terrible card right about now.
Kasali Pride Mage really going to be able to do double duty, both exalted trigger for the knight when it starts attacking, but also just sticking around and making sure that any type of equipment that could threaten to take this game out of hand is going to get stymied. It looks like Tim still has Swords to Plowshares in hand. Kind of a necessary card in the matchup, but not particularly strong. You know, True Name Nemesis can't be touched with it. Leovold, you feel terrible about casting it on him, but it is unfortunately better than the alternative.
Yeah, losing to that card. Now, if you guys are just joining us in this tense Game 3, this is the semifinals of the Titanium Legacy Challenge. These players are playing for hundreds of dollars and the right to go on to the finals to face Zach Turgeon with all in red.
Stoneforge, going to grab Batterskull. If he can get to 5 mana, that's going to allow him to put in the Batterskull and have the 3 mana available to return it in response to any type of Pride Mage activation.
But Tim O'Dowd going to stick with his original plan of get the Wastelands, get the Ghost Quarters. That is all of the white sources in Tom Smiley's deck down, both Tundras. We are a Ramunap Excavator away from a mana lock.
Now, have we seen Tom's Scrubland? Because we've got 2 Tundras and the Scrubland.
Oh, you were right, Eric Dupuis. There's one more white producing land left in the deck. The Scrubland. The maligned Scrubland.
It would really require getting to 5 mana, though. Getting out that Batterskull against the Pride Mage is essentially just killing the Pride Mage.
Right.
There's no way he's going to allow that to stick around. That's a Sword of Fire and Ice, I believe.
I think you're right. Protection from True Name Nemesis. Now, it looks like Tim's really constrained on mana, which is true. But at any moment, the Knight of the Reliquary could turn the Scrubland into a Gaia's Cradle, producing the mana necessary to play and equip Sword of Fire and Ice in one turn possible. That's the trick that Tim has up his sleeve.
He'll have exactly enough mana if that is the case. Scrubland's going to tap for 1, float the mana, go get the Cradle, that's 4 more, and then the 1 additional mana is his 6 that he needs for that play.
Wasteland takes out Canopy. Knight cannot sacrifice Horizon Canopy, has to be a forest, has to be a plains. Knight is just huge. Something on the order of a 12/12 right now.
At a certain point, it's just big enough.
13 lands in the graveyard, so it's a 15/15 actually. Getting through even once, even without a Sword of Fire and Ice, would be enough. That's really interesting because Tim only has one turn of Gaia's Cradle. The Wasteland will hit it immediately. And it looks like this is the turn. He's going to go for it. 1 white is floated, 4 green is added. Stoneforge Mystic is activated.
So we'll have 3 green floating here. Now he does have a decision here. Putting it on Knight keeps Knight around for another turn. To kill him the next turn, he would not draw the card here. He could attach it to Kasali Pride Mage just to get the attack in. I would imagine he makes the play on the Knight of the Reliquary.
No, instead he chooses neither, goes for Thalia. Last white source.
Now, he will not be able to pass this sword back and forth. Once it's on there, he does not have the mana.
Zealous Persecution. Tim O'Dowd is punished for choosing the X1. Punished in a huge way. Wow. Wasteland immediately takes out Gaia's Cradle.
The air has just been sucked out of the room. It was in a completely commanding position. And instead now is 2 land drops away from being able to equip that sword. If Tom Smiley can find an answer for that Knight of the Reliquary, this match is going to look very, very different, very fast.
Yeah. The crazy part of all of this, too, is that Tim O'Dowd has almost gone through all of his mana-producing lands in the entire deck. He has 1 Ghost Quarter, he has 1 Caracas, and maybe 1 or 2 dual lands, but at the most, he has 4 mana-producing lands in his entire deck left. Great draw. And swords drawn by Tom Smiley. Huge draw.
To be able to kill that Thalia as you get yourself out of the game, that's just so brutal. Just to talk about decision making and its impact on these games. I mean, those decisions really define all of this. Swords can get rid of Stoneforge Mystic on Tom's side. That's really not that big a deal for him right now. Contemplating putting in the Batter Skull, which essentially just kills the Kasali Pride Mage.
So Batter Skull used, and swords will resolve.
Just kind of daring Tim to kill his own creature here.
That's not a land. Have to imagine Pride Mage takes out Batter Skull now before 3 lands are open.
This is still a very tense game. I mean, more importantly, you also really need to get rid of the Batter Skull as a potential blocker. Fire and Ice will get stopped by the Batter Skull. That Germ token is black. That is really the only line available. Now now he's back to needing to rip another land. So this is a race. If Tim draws a land, this game is all but over.
Scavenging Ooze.
Unless Tom has an answer.
On a card that costs 2. His hand is a 2-drop, a 2-drop, a 2-drop, and a 3-drop. With only 2 or 3 mana-producing lands left in the deck, his odds of hitting one are really low.
You know, Tim may need to just make an all-in play, tapping his land, crop rotating it out with the Knight, just to be able to get that equipment onto the Knight of the Reliquary and just try and win the next turn.
Right. He has something like 3 fetches left to grab the 1 dual left, 1 Ghost Quarter, and 1 Caracas. That's it.
Oh, and he's got the swords.
Swords. Gain 1,000,000.
And the beatings can now begin.
Wow. How much life is he gaining? Looks like a lot. The table judge is going to confirm. It looks like it might be 37 life. We'll see. $38 life has Tim Dowd. Not a land.
It may have been a good line to actually saddle up that Stoneforge Mystic with the Sword of Fire and Ice.
Wow.
Containment Priest.
Wow.
Flash blocker. We had discussed that earlier, trying to take and put some more threats in there just to make his equipment better.
The 1-2 ambush by the 2-2.
Very grindy game. Tom's been ice skating uphill the whole time. It looks like he may have completely turned the corner now as Tim's left with just a single land and an equipment with no creatures. 38 life is a long way to go, but
5 at a time. It doesn't take that long.
We could see 8 turns here. There's a Mother of Runes.
Okay. That's something. No longer something.
More answers from Tom. Stoneforge. This is really going to push the game completely out of reach.
$29 life, almost irrelevant. The life total that matters is Tom Smiley's 13. Oof. Deathrite. I almost forgot those were in the deck.
GT's going to immediately mop this up.
In for 5. Tom will take the risk of the Deathrite.
He wants to push in the GT during the end step with his Stoneforge instead of casting it. He did not hit a land drop for turn, otherwise he would have been able to cast and equip that GT. This would be the turn. Interesting. So it looks like Tim declined to activate Deathrite and equip itself.
That would have protected it from GT.
Making it a 3-4 would have given 2 turns and also would have been able to block the everything but the true name profitably, slowing the attack steps down.
Blessed Alliance gonna make Tom sack a creature, but he's got plenty of those. Right down.
creature removal coming through, but that true name is going to be the hardest to remove.
Yeah, it will never have 1 toughness again, thanks to Uzawa's Jite. Oh.
Jite really stopping the Dryad Arbor plan, though I do believe we saw that Dryad Arbor earlier in the game anyways. Garrick is not even close to castable at this point, and this window is closing in very fast, facing down 10 damage this turn. This is a 2-turn clock.
Tim O'Dowd this game locked under his own Knights of the Reliquary, have removed all of the mana-producing lands from his deck.
A crucial play, equipping to that Thalia. Does not look like there's going to be any possible recovery from that.
Tom is all smiles here.
Tim failing to find any 1-mana or any 0-mana creatures in his deck.
Tom, 2 attack phases away. He has to turn these true names sideways twice with
Getting in
force
for 10.
back up.
That is the match.
Wow, congratulations to Tom Smiley. That was an intense game of Magic. Tim O'Dowd goes no further than 3rd place, just like last time in the Legacy Challenge. He got to 3rd place, but fell. 3rd place this time and has fallen. He'll still take home a nice chunk of change, $250. Not a bad day's work for the Maverick man. Would have liked to go farther, but could not get past the guy, the man, Tom Smiley, who's been winning all weekend. Hello. Welcome back to the booth.
That was, I think, easily the best game that we've seen on coverage. That was a very intense game. So many crucial decisions, and the decision that really decided it all looked very innocuous when it happened. Just does it even matter? And it's like, it so mattered. It was a complete blowout. The thought process when I was advocating the Kasali Pride Mage was that if your opponent does have removal, that you want them to remove the card that you don't care about,
Sure.
not the good one. I didn't even consider, as I was saying it, that they may have limited removal, which could only get that card, and that's exactly what happened.
Yep.
The Zealous Persecution punished that decision of where to equip and completely blew the game open, unlocked the Thalia lock, and countered the equipment. Wow, what a blowout.
Yeah, a card we talked about during sideboarding at the beginning of Game 2, like 30 minutes ago. We were talking about this 2 of Zealous Persecution Wars. I think we had both forgotten about it by the time turn 16 of Game 3 rolls around, when the -1/-1 to all creatures blew out the Thalia. Wow, that was intense.
It really was, and it the rest of the board didn't care about it at all. He had gigantic creatures. There was true name. There was so much going on there, and it was just that little linchpin where that everything just fell apart from there. Just that one decision, and I think that's what makes Legacy so great. Is you got 2 great players facing off, 2 very different decks, even though there's some overlap there. You've got Stoneforge in both. The way that they used those cards in their decks was very different. And at the end of the day, it was Tom's tighter play and perseverance that led to the win. He hung in there. He did not despair. He looked for the opening, even though it was a long shot. It happened, and when it was there, he took advantage of it, and that is why he is in the finals.
Yeah, he found it with the help of his friend True Name Nemesis. Wow, hell of a Magic card. Protection from a 15/15 Knight of the Reliquary, no problem. Wow, I'm happy that I'm not Tim O'Dowd right now, because I would be straight up annoyed at that True Name. But you know what? He gets to go home in 3rd/4th place. He gets a hunk of cash. He gets He did pretty well. He's top 8 both Legacy challenges he's played in. He's top 4 both Legacy challenges he's played in. Clearly knows his way around this Maverick deck. And he's been working on it for a while. It's all foil. It's all blinged out. Man, who cares about Legacy?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not sure where he plays or if he plays on a weekly basis, but if he does, that is definitely the type of kind of error that you really learn from. You know what I mean? I have no doubt that Tim will be a stronger Magic player for experiencing that and, playing on camera, actually having that error like right there was in your grasp. I think that's the type of thing that, he definitely just